In the previous lecture, we saw that the primary sex organs, which are collectively referred to as the gonads, function to produce ova or sperm, as well as hormones. The accessory reproductive organs assist the primary sex organs in their function, and these include the ducts, the glands, as well as the external genitalia. So we will examine these accessory structures in both the male and the female reproductive systems. So let's begin with the male reproductive system structures. So as an overview, we will examine these structures. The testes are the male gonads that were mentioned earlier, and they function to produce sperm cells as well as hormones such as testosterone. The testes are located within an external structure that's referred to as the scrotum. It is a pocket-like pouch that's composed of skin and muscular tissue. Within the scrotum and within the pelvic cavity, we see that there is a duct system that delivers sperm from the testes to the end of the penis during the ejaculation. And the penis, which is the male copulatory organ, has the function of delivering sperm to the vagina of the female reproductive tract. And from the vagina, the sperm will move through the cervix into the uterus, and finally into the uterine tubes, or the fallopian tubes, where fertilization of an ovulated ovum will occur. The male reproductive structures include the testes, the duct system, and the glands that are associated with the duct system. The glands produce secretions that are added to the sperm as the sperm leave the body during ejaculation. The penis, which is the copulatory organ, is composed of erectile tissue and contains the urethra through which sperm will pass through. The scrotum is an external structure composed of skin and a tissue that's referred to as the superficial fascia, and the superficial fascia contains muscular as well as connective tissues. A septum that's in the middle of the scrotum separates it into a right and a left compartment, with each compartment containing one of the testes. The testes are located external to the body because sperm production requires temperatures that are slightly lower than average body temperature, approximately 3 degrees Celsius lower than typical human body temperature. And these are temperatures that seem to be more ideal for viable sperm to be produced. Warmer temperatures can lead to the production of sperm that are not viable for fertilization. Muscles that are located in the superficial fascia will allow the testes will allow the testes to either elevate or descend, which permits the body to control the temperature of the testes. So when they are cold, the testes will be elevated closer to the body in order to warm them. And when they are warm, the testes will descend to move away from the body, help keep them cool. There are two muscle groups in the scrotum that help to control the movement of the scrotum as well as the testes. They are the dartos muscles and the cremaster muscles. The dartos muscles function to wrinkle the skin of the testes when they are cold, which helps bring the skin together as well as making it thicker, keeping the testes warm. The cremaster muscles elevate or descend the testes, which allows them to move closer to or further away from the body wall, depending on whether they are cold or they are warm. When they are too cold, the cremaster muscles will move the testes up closer to the body wall, and when they are too warm, the cremaster muscles will descend and allow the testes to move further from the body wall. So in this diagram, we see the septum of the scrotum, the cremaster muscles, as well as the superficial fascia of the scrotum, which contains the dartos muscle. Within the testes, we find a white connective tissue that's referred to as the tunica albuginea, which further subdivides each of the testes into smaller compartments that are referred to as lobules. The lobules contain coiled tubes that are referred to as the seminiferous tubules. And it is within the seminiferous tubules that we find the cells which are responsible for creating sperm cells. So in this diagram, we see the tunica albuginea as well as the lobules that are composed of the seminiferous tubules. The endocrine cells are called the interstitial endocrine cells, which function to produce testosterone when they are stimulated by luteinizing hormone from the anterior pituitary. The interstitial cells are also referred to as the Leydig cells. In this diagram, we see the internal structure of the seminiferous tubules. The spermatogenic cells are the sperm-forming cells found within the tubules. The interstitial endocrine cells, which are also known as the Leydig cells, are found in between adjacent seminiferous tubules, and they function to produce hormones like testosterone. The spermatic cord is the structure that attaches the scrotum to the body wall, and it contains within it a series of blood vessels and capillaries, nerve fibers, lymphatic vessels, as well as a duct that's referred to as the ductus deferens, which is also referred to as the vas deferens. The ductus deferens is the passageway that allows sperm to leave the testes during ejaculation. During ejaculation, sperm take the following pathway from the testes. They exit a structure called the epididymis, passing through the vas deferens to a smaller duct called the ejaculatory duct, and then finally to the urethra. And all of these structures are lined with smooth muscle that contracts in order to propel sperm through the duct. The epididymis is a tube-like structure that's located adjacent to the testes, but still within the scrotum. It is the primary site of sperm maturation because sperm that initially leave the testes are not yet matured. The epididymis stores sperm until ejaculation, and then, therefore, sperm are ejaculated from the epididymis and not ejaculated from the testes. Smooth muscles that line the wall of the epididymis will contract to propel the sperm to the ductus deferens. The tail of the epididymis stores sperm for up to a few months until ejaculation occurs. The tail of the epididymis is located adjacent to the ductus deferens and actually leads to the ductus deferens. So in this diagram, we see the epididymis that's located adjacent to the testes, however still within the scrotum. The head of the epididymis is the proximal region of the epididymis, which receives immature sperm cells from the seminiferous tubules. The body is the middle region of the epididymis, and finally the tail is the distal segment, which is connected to the ductus deferens. Next we have the ductus deferens, which is also referred to as the vas deferens, and it connects the epididymis to the ejaculatory duct, and it receives secretions from a couple of glands, primarily the seminal gland, in the production of what we call semen during ejaculation. The ductus deferens begins at the tail of the epididymis, exits the scrotum, passes or proceeds through the pelvic cavity around the urinary bladder. It makes its way through part of the prostate gland where it receives secretions from the seminal gland, and we see that there are also smooth muscles that line the walls of the ductus deferens in order to propel sperm during ejaculation. When the ejaculatory duct exits the prostate gland, it is referred to as the urethra. The urethra also receives urine from the urinary bladder, making it a shared passageway for both the reproductive and the urinary systems. There are three regions to the urethra: the prostatic, the intermediate, and the spongy urethra. The prostatic urethra is the section of urethra contained entirely within the prostate. Enlargement of the prostate, which is referred to as prostatic hyperplasia, impairs both sexual function as well as voiding of the urinary bladder. The intermediate part of the urethra is also called the membranous urethra because this is a region that passes through a muscular wall in the pelvic cavity that's called the urogenital diaphragm. And finally, we have the spongy urethra, which is also referred to as the penile urethra because it passes through some of the erectile tissue of the penis. So in this diagram, we can examine the prostatic urethra that is contained within the prostate gland, the intermediate part of the urethra that is found passing through the muscular wall that is the urogenital diaphragm, as well as the spongy urethra. So delivery of semen to the vagina is the function of the penis, and it contains the urethra surrounded by cylinders of erectile tissue. And the penis has three regions, which are the root, the body, and a structure that's called the glans, or the glans penis. The external urethral orifice, which is found at the distal end of the glans penis, allows for the passage of either urine or semen. A structure that's called the prepuce, which is the foreskin, covers and protects the glans penis. Internally, the penis is composed of three cylinders of erectile tissue, which have extensive blood vessels within them, as well as the spongy or the penile urethra. There are two dorsally located erectile tissue structures that are referred to as the corpora cavernosa. The corpora cavernosa fill with blood during erection and prevent drainage of that blood when they are filled. Sexual arousal triggers a parasympathetic nervous system response, and nitric oxide is released. Nitric oxide relaxes the smooth muscle of the arterioles that are within the corpora cavernosa, allowing blood to more easily flow through the arterioles and fill the erectile tissue that composes the corpora cavernosa. This is one of the only examples in the body where the parasympathetic division of the autonomic nervous system controls arterial blood flow. Next, we have the corpus spongiosum, which is the third cylinder of erectile tissue in the penis. It is located inferiorly and surrounds the urethra. And at the distal end, the corpus spongiosum expands to form the glans penis. The corpus spongiosum functions to keep the urethra open during erection so that semen can travel through the urethra unimpeded during ejaculation.